You can tell it's Sunday. It's a very quiet day. No hammering, no banging, no building works. I really like that. If ever I have a question of what day of the week it is, which quite frequently happens, might I tell you, it's good to listen to the world around you. And if you don't hear people working, men at work, or women at work, then it usually means it's a Sunday. Today is a Sunday. That's always nice. I have a fairly short shift today, 5 hours, so that's not bad. And I wanted to share an idea with you that came to me kind of over the last couple of days, but it's the more I thought about it, inspired by the Firewatch game, is in fact a new type of it's so vague, it's really difficult to describe. Let me give you a bit of background thing. It's a kind of a software that I'm thinking somebody should write. I mean, I don't think I can do it, but maybe somebody who knows how, perhaps as a collaborative effort, we can do this going forward. This is probably ahead of its time. Perhaps the time is right. I don't know. So here's my idea, here's my concept. It is kind of a replacement for things like the people who use DAZ Studio and Poser and things like View and all those types of that are generally classified as hobbyist applications, with which, by hobbyist I don't mean it's, in a bad way. I don't mean this in a derogatory way at all. But professional level software is something else. And this is something that is geared towards amateurs who want to create a still picture, or perhaps a short animation, but mainly a kind of a still picture, like illustrators, people who need something like a backdrop for something, or they want a story, they want to tell a story, like comic book creators who can't necessarily draw, those types of people who need to churn out a large amount of images, like an image series, and tell a story. Those people are, like me, creatives who not necessarily have the time to learn an extensive software like DAZ Studio, because one of the things with DAZ and Poser and View and Carrara and all these types of applications, and I'm deliberately kind of excluding the high-end professional type software for that is being used to make 3D games and all that. I'm excluding those because that's a different kettle of fish. I'm thinking about normal people who make something on the side as a hobby, people who may use something like Comic Life. This is a software in which you just import regular images and it puts some kind of a retro photo dot pattern thing on there, lets you add speech bubbles, and that's it, you've got a product. So that's the story you want to tell. So those types of people, and I'm including myself in there because sometimes I'm just getting so roped into the interface that it's just not exactly a pleasure to create a series of images to tell a story. So that's difficult, and it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of learning. So I would like to create something, or I'd like for something to exist essentially that does this much easier. So if I'm thinking about DAZ and Poser, those are based on technology that was available 20 years ago. 20 years ago. And even though the hardware side has moved on and some of the software portions have moved on, essentially we're still in the past with those interfaces. So but then the annoying part of that is, this is what my experience, you buy some content, you drop it in, you spend forever tweaking it and putting it in the right places, setting up your camera, setting up your lighting. It takes forever to do that, just so that you can finally press a button so that you render out a picture in relatively high quality, which also takes forever to do. And then you're not even happy with the results. And that is that's really turning me off these things. I gotta be super honest with you there. So what I'd like is something built on a game engine in which I, as a person, wander around as if I am the photographer. I frame up my shot and I press a button, the end, and that's my picture. And that is possible with today's technology, but I don't think we have a software that is geared to that type of person who is really not interested in playing a video game as such and following a story. Those are the people who are interested in looking at a backdrop from several angles, much like a photographer or a cameraman with a camera. Look through the lens, move your character, move the camera around, frame up your shot, drop in a character from an easily accessible menu, give the character something to wear, give them something to interact with, be that vehicles, be that other characters, be that, I don't know, a bicycle. Frame up the shot and go boom, that's it. If you want different lighting, great. Let's give these people several to choose from, even add-on products with which you can easily choose your lights, but basically make it fun and easy. So I think what I'm getting at is setting up a picture in a scene, and anything you make with Poser and DAZ Studio and View and Carrara and all that, that is time consuming and not fun at all. It's agonizing and a terrible experience. It is not conducive to creativity, to creative thinking. It is not really doing that. It really turns me off wanting to tell a story. And it takes forever to do too. So usually what ends up happening is that even though I am kind of getting into the software and it's nice to explore it and all that, there comes a point where you think, hey, I don't feel that this is fun. Playing a video game is fun sometimes, and you can take the most amazing screenshots from that video game, but the games are not so much written for you to do that. I mean, even if you're allowed to do it and if you can do it, it's not made for that, you know. I mean, even extracting a HDRI from abduction that I've tried there, that's not a one-click operation either. That would be nice if we could do that, but currently it's just not a one-click operation. It's just not made for that, I think. And this is my point here. This is why I'm putting this idea on tape now, that I think we're on the verge of something that we could make that happen. So we have the game engines, we have the technology to do real-time rendering at a quality that is probably enough for most people to tell a good story with some visual finesse there, in some stunning detail. But what we lack really is something. Imagine this as a game and you wander around, but it's not a game. It's kind of, you're in it and you've got this first person thing and you're in this big room and you have 10 doors through which you can walk. Behind door 1 is an outdoor scene and you can set the light, you can say what time of day it is, and you wander around a forest, and wherever you wander there's bigger trees, smaller trees, but you find anything outdoor in that room. And you think, great, I want an indoor scene. So you go back into the corridor, walk into door 2, and there's a vast amount of office sets. So imagine this like a huge scale Hollywood type set. And you walk in it and you see all types of office environments. And you can say, do you want it to be daylight, nighttime, afternoon, whatever, how much background action you want that to be, and just, you know, set those parameters up and the engine does it for you. And those are kinds of, these rooms, I envision those as kind of add-on packs. You know, you give people something for free with the software, but then the more types of scenes you want to build, you just buy packs, and those will open different doors and that'll generate extra revenue. And it's only for the sole purpose of our character to go in there, to frame up a shot, put a marker, and that will be your shot. You can save it, you can come back, you can render it in whatever the higher resolution, lower resolution you need. You can drop in characters, you can then walk the characters to where they need to be, you can put the characters into poses, you can put clothes on the characters, much like we do in DAZ Studio, but rather than faff with freaking install manager and then something doesn't work and then you drop in the character and then the shader isn't right and then you put clothing on that doesn't actually work because it's not made for the character, and then you buy another add-on pack just to get an expression that you then find isn't actually what you're looking for. Do away with all of that and just have something that's fun and simple, almost like the really minimalist character generators that you have with RPGs, or even things like when you create your me on the Wii, you know, your avatar, Give them a bigger upper lip, smaller upper lip, bigger nose, smaller nose, make the eyes closer together. Those types of simple things, but make them a little bit more involved. And you know, like when you generate a sim, for example, you know, in the Sims, that sort of thing, make that a feature of the software, but don't go overboard. Don't let people do literally everything, or maybe let them do everything, but make it simple for them to choose it and let them have fun while they're doing that. You'd be surprised what a world of income there might be, especially if you think longevity. So just to run some numbers by you there, this is kind of inspired by the Firewatch game, and I think maybe that's what attracted me to it, that I was just lost in this whole scenery, just walking around and looking at things and pointing my camera no matter where and just looking at the amazing, just subtle animations of the grass and the trees and the lighting effects and the fog and all that. Unbelievable. So I'm thinking, make something like that, but rather than try and build up a story, just do away with the story altogether and just make this a background generator, an image generator, something like that. And so just to run some numbers by you, if a software like that costs $20 for people to buy on Steam, on wherever, it doesn't matter, $20, you probably end up with a profit of about $5. And that accounts for sales and marketplaces taking a cut, and you probably have to pay the game engine people that you make that thing with and so forth. But you know, let's just say you end up with about $5. You sell 1 million copies, it's $5 million. That's not bad. Firewatch has sold 2.5 million, you know, at $5 a pop. I mean, imagine that. And I think if you make it something that lets everyone create pictures and animations and not even focus on the story, almost like Roblox, you know, where you can make things yourself. Professional content creators can create those packs, sell them through a marketplace. You take a cut when they do, or don't take a cut if you don't want the overhead of a marketplace and all that. Also fine, let people sell it through other avenues, Gumroad and Patreon, whatever. And just let people do it, you know. Get the base software out there for a nominal fee, and by nominal I don't mean $200, I mean $20, and let people have fun, doodle around, and let them create pictures and animations. Imagine visual storytelling like that, even if you're telling a story in stills, but there's subtle movement within those. That'll be like a series of subtly animated stills. That would be kind of cool. And literally go to town on background animation, environmental effects, that sort of thing. Let people play with it and just have fun. And that is conductive. I really don't know what the correct word is here, but that is conducive to creativity. I would love for something like that to exist. I don't know how to make it, but I'd love to be involved in making it. So that's one of those ideas that I thought I'd put out there, because I think that could replace things like DAZ Studio and Poser, and you know, connect people with the fun really it takes to dream up a story. I mean, from a writing point of view, if you're a writer and you have a laptop, that's really all you need, you know. And if you, I don't know, if you work with index cards or not, it doesn't really matter, but you don't need all those fancy technical tools, and it's difficult to get into them. But what is becoming more and more critical is in bringing ideas across, no matter what you want to do. If you want to sell them to Hollywood, if you want to have somebody shoot a movie, if you want to shoot a movie, whatever, you want to create this kind of storyboard that brings the idea across of what kind of story you're telling. So it doesn't matter if the graphic novel is already the end output, or if that funny GIF that you want to put on Facebook is the end output, or if you want to use that to sell a story and have the story made in a different medium. Those types of tools, they're awesome. And imagine you bring that to mobile devices as well. Absolutely cool. Let's put our thinking caps on. What can we name it? How can we get started? Shall we put a template together? Something like that. Let's think. What a cool idea. So while I was at work, I kept thinking about the idea, and there's two things I just wanted to mention to round off the whole package. So first of all, I came up with kind of a tentative name. That's nice because then we have something that we can refer to. Crazy people. So that's not the code name. So the idea I had was just call it Project Scenebuilder, or the Scenebuilder project. Some kind of, scene builder. It kind of describes what it is. Let's call it that for now, until we come up with something better. So that's one thing. The other is that there's a part I hadn't actually mentioned on my way into work. So that is the building part of it. I don't just want people to get pre-built things. I do want them to have an influence on what they can do with it in order to build their scenes. But again, it's going to have a very simplified, very easy interface. And the closest thing I can think of is a bit like the building components that we have in Subnautica. So they've expanded on that idea in the next version of Subnautica, Below Zero, and they have different types of building blocks that you can play with. So currently we have in the regular Subnautica, or Subnautica 1, whatever you want to call it, there's this habitat builder thing, and you can create from components, you can create a base part and like a long thin bit that connects to the next part and so forth. But in the next Subnautica and Below Zero, they have larger rooms, more items that you can use, and that works by, imagine you don't need to find these resources. You can just go and start building things and put a wall in the middle and put a door into the wall and put a window where you need it, and in an office environment put a desk where you want it and put a computer where you want it, but fairly simple. So essentially you click a button, you move around the interface, and it kind of snaps into place, and press a button and it pops in there. And that's the kind of interface that I'm thinking about. It would give people an option to do this themselves, to create scenes themselves, if they want to deviate from the example environments that we give them. And it makes it really easy to place elements where they want them to put them. So rather than having this super open, you can do everything you want type thing, I think we should put some kind of restrictions on where things pop into place, for example. Or we can play with it and take them away, I don't know. But sometimes it's a double-edged sword. Having so much possibility in something, it means people will be, it's not going to be easy for us to make up our minds. So I'm thinking sometimes restrictions are nice. Perhaps we'll have both modes. We'll just have to play with it and see if we have something tangible that we can play with ourselves and see what feels natural. If we want something in which components can pop into place or not, I'm thinking it'll probably make the building engine a lot easier if we have something where object A connects seamlessly with object B if they snap into one another, and it just doesn't get built if they don't snap into one another. Well, we'll see. I mean, Subnautica is something that is it's just an example. I mean, other games like The Sims, they use similar things, that you can only put houses and walls into certain places. So that's the kind of interface that I'm envisioning. Also, there is also, speaking of creating environments, there is also, I guess, an option for us to smuggle in a randomizer, so that you have, if we stick with the office environment as an example, you have a finite amount of items in your scene, and you can have as many of them as you want. You can have 2 of them, you can have 5 of them, you can have 100 of them, you can have a small office, you can have a big office, and so forth. You can have windows, certain types of windows in walls, and you get to be put in control what type of light shines through, unless you pick a default environment. So, but with all these things there at the ready, I think there's an idea to get a randomizer in there. So I don't know if it's going to be a complete randomizer, or if it has things in, if there's only certain types of things that can be randomized. But it'll be nice to say, well, shuffle this around and give me an impression of what this looks like, and let me press the shuffle button as many times as I like, just to get an idea of, wow, this is nice, this is not so nice, these are elements that I'd like to retain but randomize the rest, that sort of thing. I find that's going to be good, and it's kind of an idea that has also found its way into how environments are now built. So there is a way, if you imagine a wilderness environment, and that's very popular these days in video games, there is a way to do this manually by putting each tree into a certain position, and it drives the people who have to do it kind of nuts, because it's seriously punishing work. But also it means you can craft the perfect environment. But at the same time also you can use the approach, if it's a really large environment with lots of items, you can take the approach and let the computer just randomize something. And for example, say, well, in this area we like to have a lake, so don't put trees in there. And in this area we have a little hill, so there won't be any water in there. And at the top of the hill, the shaders for the trees look slightly different than they are at the bottom of the hill, for example. You set these parameters, and then, you know, the engine will kind of do the rest. And it's those types of parameters that I'm thinking we could integrate into that project to make it something that's just really fun to use. So this is what it's all about. It's supposed to be a lot of fun. You can even use the same principle on characters and just go get randomized characters out and give people the option to randomize the face only, or the body shape, or, you know, the height, or certain parameters. And it would just make for a really fun way of building scenes, and, you know, animated kind of stills, that sort of thing. Yes, the Scenebuilder project. There we go. That's my idea. I think I'll ponder more on this, and if you imagine this is part one of it, I will put another part out and just show you quickly the Scenebuilder, or the kind of the building environment, the building thing that they've used in Subnautica Below Zero, just so that I can show you a bit of an idea of what I mean by this is something I can envision us building together as a scene building project and make millions of dollars in the process.